Good afternoon, everyone. We haven't done this for a while, so the official types over here, please correct me. Will appreciate and welcome your help. We're getting ready to have a study session. And do you want to take attendance now, or are we going to wait?
I'll have the record reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Mayor Quintanilla.
Thank you very much. And do we have any official notices to make regarding
Madam Mayor.
Zoom or anything else? No? Okay, so let's start with our first study session item, and it looks like we have something from Mr. Lamb on the update of the design for Haystack Road.
And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just for a little bit of context for this item, for the last several months, staff has been meeting with community groups, residents in South Palm Desert regarding the design of some improvements to the Haystack Road channel, storm channel. Today is really to try to get to let you know where we've come from, where we are today, what options are still out there, but to bring the council up to speed with with where we are with the public before it goes back to the Plan Commission. So it's not a definitive, this is what's getting done, but much more of an opportunity to try to catch everyone up. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, council members. Ryan Lamb, Capital Projects, Senior Project Manager. So just give a little background on the project purpose. So the general manager of Marrakesh a couple years ago came to the city with concerns about the erosion of the channel, which then led city staff to go out and evaluate the channel and identify that there were some erosion concerns that should be addressed. And the capital improvement projects list then became updated to add the Haystack channel modifications and corrections to the project list and funding. The city then hired an engineer to design the project. And we have with us here, we have Mo Amadi with Engineering Resources of Southern California, who's one of the designers. And we also hired an environmental consultant, Terra Nova, and John Christ is here. So both of them will be able to answer any technical questions that we might have. So the design was presented to the Planning Commission on May 7th of this year. And it was actually the initial study mitigated negative declaration of environmental impact that went to the Planning Commission for approval. And the commission deferred action on that until a later meeting where they can have more staff present and consultants present to answer some questions that they had. So then the following month in June, we brought the same declaration back to Planning Commission, and the commission then again deferred, requesting that city staff go out to the community, hold community engagement, and present multiple design options and get feedback from the community. So the community engagement meeting we held on June 26th, and we presented 4 different options of the design remediation to the native portion of the channel. And those included a natural version, a sand-covered boulder sloped version, just boulders on the slopes, and a vertical stacked boulder option. The 2 preferred options from the group, majority overwhelming, were for the natural option and for the sand-covered boulders. Then shortly after, just about 2.5 weeks later, we had a significant rain event here in the valley, which caused some significant erosion and damage to the channel, which required the city to perform emergency repairs to that channel, which took place between August and September of this year. So moving forward to November, just last month, we had a second community engagement meeting where we presented further analysis on the 2 options that were preferred back from the previous community engagement meeting. So to give more context to the project location, between Highway 74 and Portola on the north side of Haystack Road is the channel. There's the area, the Greenbelt area between Alamo and Highway 74, the Greenbelt area that there is no changes scheduled for or proposed for the project as part of the project. And then there is the Greenbelt area between Alamo and Heliotrope, where the remediation that would be proposed is underground infiltration system in order to improve the percolation of the water to eliminate some standing water in some areas there, as well as keep the water flowing forward through down channel at 4 different locations. And the areas of concern really for the flooding is the natural area that is east of Heliotrope Drive, and specifically on the north and the south side. On the north side is Marrakesh Country Club, and on the south side is Haystack Road. So the surrounding homes are at risk of damage and public safety concerns, obviously with the pedestrian sidewalk there on the Haystack Road area where the erosion is coming within feet of the sidewalk, as well as within feet of the property line for Marrakesh. And there's also a concern for compromised utility infrastructure, as there is Coachella Valley Water District has water lines flowing through, are crossing that channel, and there are Southern California Edison power lines with the poles that go through that channel with the foundations. So to provide a little more info on the green belt correction, so you can see from the images here that there is the issue with the standing water and the erosion when there is a heavy rain, that because the water is not able to percolate quickly enough, so we get some standing water issues. And just to reiterate that the end goal would be, the proposed remediation here is that the grass would be put back after the infiltration system is installed. So it would look just the way it does today once the work would be done. So as I had mentioned, we had that heavy rain back in July of this month, or I'm sorry, of this year. And just had a brief video that was provided by a resident where you could see that heavy rain and heavy flow is very easily able to make work of the soft soil and grass in that natural portion. So anywhere that you just have sand and you don't have heavy items like boulders to mitigate and control the flow of that water can lead to uncontrolled erosion and concerns. So some photos of following the storm of the heavy erosion. So there in the top left, see if I get the pointer. So right here, that's the foundation of the Southern California Edison pole that I had mentioned, where it came very close to being completely undermined by the flowing water and causing issues. Thankfully, it was not, and we were able, during the emergency repairs, able to bolster the area around it and maintain the security. And on the top right, we have the Marrakesh Country Club border. So you could see the erosion uncontrolled is able to go, we can't direct it with just sand. So it was able to start flowing north and south very easily. And thankfully it stayed within the channel and it did not reach the borders, and we didn't cause any issues, but it is obviously a concern that could happen. As well as the bottom 2 photos, that's the south border against the sidewalk on Haystack Road, where you can see where it comes within feet of that sidewalk pathway, walking area, and can create an unsafe condition for pedestrians if they're walking if it were to undermine the sidewalk itself, as well as anybody walking there if they were to meander off the walking path, then that's a pretty steep drop to fall. So that was also part of the immediate remediation and repairs that were done. So to kind of give some before and after context, the photo on the left there, that's right at the inlet at Heliotrope, where it enters in where the small patch of grassy area, where you could see how quickly and easily it's able to undermine the soil there. And the middle area is just some natural part of the channel. And the image on the right is the inlet, the culvert there that goes under Portola, where you can see it came within about 18 inches of hitting the top of there, and as well as filling it with sand and debris. So after the emergency repairs were done, we had underneath all that fresh grass sod there on the left is boulders. So I was able to bolster that underground there, so it would help mitigate the erosion from the initial flow coming out of the culvert. As well as we had the contractor put in a small batch of boulders there on the side slope, so we can share that with the public during their community outreach meeting. So we can give them so they had an actual visual of what we were intending to do with the rest of the channel on the side slope. The middle image there, that's the further down in the middle of the channel, where you could see that the sand and the soil have just been pushed up through the channel and up on the sides. So it was able to repair that the cutback and the vertical erosion and create a safer condition for the channel condition. And the culvert there under Portola is now cleared, so that's flowing freely for the water. So moving forward to the two options that we were provide further analysis with the community when we had the engagement last month was to move forward with either the natural slopes or a boulder with soil on the slopes. The natural slopes would be just leave it as is, the width of dirt that was just pushed up onto the side slopes to maintain the current conditions that were there. And then the second option that we were looking at were the boulder and soil slopes, where you could, in the top image there on the right, that is the that's a channel in La Quinta that was just kind of a basis of reference that the engineering team was using to show that we could have boulders on the side slopes with soil, and plants and trees would still be able to grow, that it wouldn't be a harsh end reality. And then the bottom image on the right, that's a artist rendering showing maturity of the side slopes in the future, if we were to do that. So part of the challenges with the repairs that are and the maintenance that are done while it is in a natural condition, you can see the image there on the right where you see all that dirt and soil, that whenever there's a maintenance required, a significant amount of maintenance that's required from a rain event, that soil gets pushed up through the channel, up onto the side slopes, and that is going to remove and damage any vegetation that might be there. Now, the contractors, they did their best to work around plants and vegetation that was there. So thankfully, we were able to save, some of the plants where they were making the repairs, but not all. As you can see from the image there on the left, there are many locations where the slopes are just left barren because the plants were wiped out from either the storm, from the rain, or then the repair. And that is a consequence of the continued maintenance, that the more often you do the maintenance and have to perform the maintenance, the more that sand being moved through is going to actually damage the vegetation. So the second option was the boulder and soil option. So the top left image there, that was the condition before the emergency repairs. And then the artist renderings in the middle and the right, one being right after repairs would be done, that you would see that the boulders and the soil would be there without the vegetation on the side slope. But then the improvements at maturity, as once nature would take its course, within a few years, that nature, you'd start getting really, good, robust regrowth of plant life there on the sides of the channels as well as in the bottom of the channel. So some comparisons between the two items if we were to go with the natural option. So it does have reduced capacity or integrity with the natural slope option with just the soil. So if there's a 100-year storm or larger, there is a much more significant threat and unable to control the flow if it does decide that it wants to start eating into the sidewalls left or right, north or south in this case in the channel, that it would be less controllable. There is an access road that is planned for the project. There was one that was kind of there that got washed out from the storms. And so the emergency repairs, they did not they didn't build that back because it wasn't an engineering fix. It was just an immediate, let's make sure the channel is functional fix. And so the cost comparison between the two, that the natural option being that it is a lower upfront cost, but long-term annual maintenance cost, and obviously the vegetation that would be regularly removed or damaged during the repairs, that would be the difference as well. And the planned commitment from Public Works to continually maintain and budget for ongoing maintenance would be in our annual budgets moving forward. And the last item was just the way we're staying in touch with the community. We have on the Engage Palm Desert page, we have the project there, and we've notified all the homeowners in the area through the community engagement letters and during the meeting that this is up and running, and as well as emails. So those that attended the community engagement meetings that left their email addresses, we've sent them emails, and they're able to access this page as they see necessary to stay in touch and communicate with us on the project.
Thank you. So let's go questions and comments.
What are the next steps in the process? Will this be going back to the planning commission now?
Yes, our plan is to take it to planning commission at the January meeting to take the negative mitigated declaration back and get approval of the CEQA documents, and then proceed forward with the design, with the final design, go to Fish and Wildlife with the proposed design, get their feedback and address comments accordingly based on their requirements and their necessity. We've also been working with the utility providers to identify and locate their specific locations of the water lines and address the power lines to ensure that we're responsive to those. And we're not going to create any issues when we do any repairs.
Oh, it sounds like we should withhold opinions until some further steps happen. Is that correct at this point?
We're glad to take any recommendations and opinions on it, but there really isn't any action until we get through to the planning commission for the next steps.
I won't be withholding my opinion, so please.
Well, because this has been a topic of great public interest, I would suggest the public wants to make sure the process is full and complete before folks plant a flag someplace. So
I had a
Please.
few, okay, so do you have a tally of the preference of the residents to date that have responded? Have they chosen option 1, option 2? Is there a,
So we don't have like an exact tally, but we had at the first community engagement meeting, we had just over 80 residents. And we gave them, what we did was we gave them stickers to give us their first opinion and second opinion. And about 60 to 70% of the people the attendants there at that first engagement preferred the natural option. They were very vocal about maintaining the nature and the natural element of that portion of the channel. And then the remainder the secondary option was the robust item with the boulders. So even though they picked their first option was natural, the second option was the boulders. And then the other about 30% selected the boulder option with actually a more robust option, because those people, their concern was the integrity of the channel above all.
couple more questions?
Yep.
could it just because I was present at that session, I'll offer the impression that because there was no audio visual, the participants weren't able to see all of the detailed comparative information that we just saw.
Which was very helpful for me.
So that was a first gut response, and you probably don't want to take it as more than a first gut response, because there's been a subsequent meeting where folks had the opportunity to see all this detail and comparative info.
That's good information to have. And then my second question, is there a preference from the utility providers over the options? Have they weighed in?
They have not provided any feedback on preference.
Okay, and then just looking at the cost, option 2 with the boulders, it goes from 500,000 to 3.3 million. Those are some expensive boulders. I mean, can't we go to Muller's and get some boulders? I know I'm exaggerating here. Maybe it's the road. That seems such a huge increase from 500,000 to 3.3 million.
Labor.
Yeah, most of it is in the labor and equipment that's required and the time that it takes. Just the emergency repairs alone, which was just pushing dirt around, that was over $200,000, and that was just moving the dirt over a period of a few weeks.
On that issue, am I correct that the boulders with sand option requires installing those boulders to a certain depth? which is some of the reason for the added cost, because that requires more elaborate engineering and construction than just throwing them against the side.
That is correct. So there is a requirement when you do install those side slopes that it's not just on the side, and what it's called scour. So as the water is flowing, what it does is it eats away at that bottom area of the slope. So I can get this to work. So about right there, that's the water line, and the boulders themselves actually go down about 8 feet further from the bottom of the channel. So as the water is flowing down through the channel, that it's not going to eat away underneath and undermine the bottom of the slopes. So you do have, so visually and physically, what you see with your eyes, there's actually a significant more amount of the boulders that are below the bottom of the channel. Yep.
Please.
All right, thank you, Ryan. How much damage was done in the Hillary storm? Was that August of 23? Is that right?
Yes.
To this particular channel, and how much repair was required from that storm?
There wasn't, I can't put a dollar figure on that because there wasn't an emergency repair done at that. Because the integrity was borderline that it was still functional. And then the July storm took it, basically was the straw that broke the camel's back on the integrity that it required the emergency repair right away.
And how were each of those storms, how do they rate in terms of 100-year, 500-year, 1,000-year storms?
So the Hillary was a 100-year storm, and I don't know the exact caliber of the storm in July.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to ask that question, and I bring it up every once in a while. If we don't have the money to do it right the first time, how are we going to have the money to do it right the second time? And in this case, it'll be the third time and the fourth time and the fifth time. It's an investment that we're making. We see by what you're saying, I think it's abundantly evident that the boulders are the best approach. We all love the natural look. We love it on our hillsides. We love it in every wash and every place we have. And we can make this look natural using boulders. We can't keep going back and doing this. We don't want to erode away at Marrakesh or at our utilities. These are chances we should not be taking. So I think this is, especially with what we've been given here today. I mean, I recognize I'm what we're seeing now, all the polka dots, people said, yeah, I like it natural. Well, okay, I get it. But we're also aware that there have been some shifts in weather patterns. This was not something we dealt with. We do deal with it now. So that's what we need to look at. And I appreciate all this information, because what we need to do is protect our current infrastructure. And you've provided us very clear evidence of the best way to go about doing that. So I appreciate that. Here's my question, don't you?
No.
Okay, just kidding.
Could I add one thing?
Please.
I just want to feature this, since I won't be here for next steps. We talk a lot about being prepared for a 100-year flood. The July 14th storm was so instructive, because it won't make any history books. It wasn't a 100-year flood. It wasn't a 50-year flood. It was a simple, ordinary summer thunderstorm that happened to be intensely concentrated in 1 or 2 blocks of South Palm Desert that drained into this channel. And we've seen in these pictures what it produced. So we need to keep in mind that we are trying to safeguard adjoining property owners and users of this space from more than just the 100-year flood.
Thank you for that, because the definitions are so broad when we talk about whether it's 100-year or 500-year, or what it might be. It's so ambiguous. And what our goal is to protect our infrastructure, our neighborhoods, and our community members. And I do want to mention that Councilmember Kelly and I, along with the Palm Desert team, went out on a little field trip to investigate and educate, so we understood it better as we went forward. And I think it was quite evident there were steps that needed to be taken so that we don't damage what we currently have invested in. We need to invest in our investment. So are there any other questions or comments?
No, I agree with Jan. I like the idea of investing up front and hopefully warding off the necessity for repairs in the future. You know, if you do the sand sided, the likelihood that it will be damaged in the future and require more repairs is more likely. So for what it's worth at this point in the discussion, I'd like the bolder option, the investment up front.
I appreciate too that you have it on Engage Palm Desert, and hopefully there's a lot of information so people have ample understanding of what it is we're dealing with.
Yes. And we'll continue to update it as the project progresses.
Great, thank you. Okay. Oh,
It's up to you.
okay. We generally do not take during study sessions. Is this on this specific issue? I've missed, is it Mr. Bowler? Is this on this specific issue? Okay, would you like to share with us, please?
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
You have 3 minutes.
I apologize for not realizing you normally don't do this during a study session. I just want to clarify something. The community feel very strongly about this. And we feel also that the city has been listening to us, from the planning commission to the engineers. But today it kind of feels a little bit like, okay, that doesn't matter. And I think it's important that you understand this is very important to the residents. I understand it's a difficult decision, not only for the short term, but the long term. And I want to mention something that I hadn't heard in any of the other meetings. The grass area that was by heliotrope, that started eroding a while ago. And it really went fast after the last two storms, Hillary and then the one in July. But there's an interesting thing is that it eroded. You could see a lot of very large boulders under that area. So I think for me, even though we put boulders, riprap along the sides of the channel, will it really protect it? Because it didn't protect what was right under the grass by heliotrope. That was all I
Thank you.
wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
No, but I'm confident staff will consider that input in future presentations.
And I would encourage you to add that to Engage Palm Desert, because we have that for the community members, all community members to weigh in. So please use that resource. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then that concludes. Do we have anything else on study session?
We don't. We have a closed session at 3:30.
Okay, that concludes our study session. Thank you.